and welcome to the Ask Assaad show. I'm Michael Gaines, and glad you are joining us today as we continue our conversation of bringing insight out and providing expert analysis and perspective on the energy industry and the markets that shape our world. So glad you are joining us today for a great conversation. Have a special guest, Ian Ayling, who is the Chief Sales Officer for the Completion and Production Solutions segment here at NOV, and is going to be able to provide a rare look into really the world of the completions, productions, and many other aspects of NOV, and provide us a glimpse into kind of how he sees the world here at NOV and so forth. So looking forward to that. Before we jump in, going to go ahead and bring in Shelby Domain to talk about how you can provide your perspective for our conversation today, as well as how you can get your comments into us today and for future episodes. Hey, Shelby.
Hey, Michael. Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that everybody watching at home can get involved. The first and maybe the easiest way is by commenting below. So if you have a question or even a comment and you would like to join in on the conversation with Assaad, Michael, and our special guest today, then you can let us know in the comments. So we're there the entire show, reading everything, checking it all out, seeing what everybody's saying. For example, I love right now, I'm seeing where everyone's watching from. I see some friends from MD Taco watching. We love that. The Hague. So if you want to let us know where in the world you're tuning in from, we love seeing that. And then, like I said, throughout the show, if you have a question or a comment, go ahead and put that in there as well. And we'll try to feature you on the show, especially at the end when we'll do a Q&A. And then after the show, if you still have more questions, more comments, even ideas for future episodes that you would like to see, you can reach out to us two different ways. The first is you can email us. So that email is askassaad@nov.com. Reach out, send us a quick message there. And then the other way, and I think everybody, if you've watched that show before, you know it's one of my favorite ways, is you can actually give us a call. So you would call, leave a voicemail. You can stay anonymous, or you can let us know, where you work, maybe where you're from, and we can feature you on a future episode. But that number is on the screen now. It's country code +1 346 223 4799. I love this option. I love hearing from our viewers. So you we would love to hear from you, whether it's in the comments, in email, or in the phone. And then the another fun thing that I've been liking to push lately, because we just dropped it, is our website link. So if you want to watch a past episode and kind of binge all of them and catch up on everything we talk about here on the Ask Assaad show, or even NOV Live, you can find us at nov.com/live. And just like I said, if you have a comment on one of those past episodes or a question you'd like to ask, then you can email or call us for those old ones too. And we would still love to help you out and point you in the right direction. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Shelby. Really appreciate it. And yeah, definitely get your questions in. I actually see some questions starting to come in now. So never too early to go ahead and get those in right now. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump in and, of course, bring in our show's namesake and NOV's resident expert, Assaad Mohanna, Director of Business Strategy here at NOV. So, Assaad, I know we had a break last week, but good to see you again. Hope it was restful and you geared up for today. Of course, the goings and happenings of the energy industry never take a break. So a lot to cover today.
Good to see you, Michael. I've been. It was a good break for sure. Good to be back. We did have quite a bit in the last couple of weeks in terms of events and updates and analysis in oil and gas. I think one of the things that stands out is seeing some of the E&P companies report their CapEx for the coming year, which to everybody's delight was a bit more positive than 2020. As we closed the year with about 25% drop in CapEx, slightly better than the expectations, which was originally about 40%. We expect next year to increase by about 7% in terms of E&P spending globally, and that's going to happen in both North America and internationally. So great news for the industry as we see E&P spending sort of bottoming out, which I think is a great indication. As we've talked in the past few shows, Michael, we're talking now with a slightly different tone, a bit more optimism when it comes to 2021, signs of recovery, returning to this space, seeing some players take a entirely different discipline when it comes to developing fields, and that's quite refreshing to see. Companies have been chasing growth for the last decade in the E&P space, especially players in the shale space. Now all the focus is on returns. Investors are more than ever adamant to get returns on equity, return on capital employed, and that's really how E&Ps are restructuring themselves to make all their activities profitable, not just incremental in terms of production. So we do expect that discipline to have changed after oil prices recover or keep to recover. The other dynamic there, Michael, is that we've seen a lot of companies both file for bankruptcy and a lot of companies merge with other sister companies. On the bankruptcy side, that brings back some companies that are healthier, that are leaner, now that they exit the bankruptcy stage. Noble Drilling is one example that just exited bankruptcy late in November, making it less in need of that big size cash flow, and really more competitive in the space they're at. So really bring in more efficiency to our space. And then on the M&A aspect, I think we've seen Pioneer and Parsley, we've seen Conoco and Concho, Devon and WPX, of course Chevron and Noble. All of those are great indication of a market recovery, although that is required to accelerate even further for a recovery to happen. And the other thing we talked about lately was the automotive industry's returns, which in Q3 had increased by a significant 31% from the prior quarter, as hopefully signaling some sort of early indicator of a recovery. People buying more pickup trucks and vehicles, some of them energy efficient, but still people are getting back on the roads, especially with news of vaccines coming up. I think we're getting to some sort of a turning point there, bringing a lot of energy into worldwide economy and the recovery journey.
Well, I will say very qualitatively, Assaad, I had to, speaking of vehicles, I had to take my vehicle into the shop just recently, got it fixed. I was talking to the mechanic, and sure enough, he said he recently went to test drive one of the new pickup trucks that has come out. And as you've already mentioned, the salesman said that these vehicles, and some of them appreciably priced, and he said they are flying off the lot. So yeah, folks, I don't know if it's a getting kind of quarantine fever. Maybe it's a bad choice of words, but I don't know if they're getting cabin fever or being at home or what. But maybe that vacation money that folks otherwise would have spent going on a trip has been deviated into these vehicles. But yeah, it is interesting seeing some of the activity in the automotive space for sure is a canary in the coal mine, so to speak.
And a big thank you to your mechanic there. I mean, we need more people buying vehicles. I think that does a lot of good for the industry.
Yeah.
On the vaccine side, of course, the UK was the first to adopt today a vaccine. So we'll get to see perhaps 2021 start well. The other dynamic that's happening today, or this week in particular, is OPEC, and its allies, which is OPEC plus, OPEC and Russia, that have committed to production cuts earlier this year in April by about 9.7 million barrels a day, which took about 10% of the worldwide production off the market, which was great in support of the reduction in demand for oil and gas. OPEC plus eased those production cuts to 7.7 million barrels a day later in the year, around August, as things were slightly improving, we're getting a little more comfortable living with the pandemic. But January brings another milestone or another date where OPEC Plus needs to make a decision on, and that's around easing even further production cuts down to 5.5. So 9.7 back to 7.7, now 5.5 or 5.7 million barrels, bringing another 2 million barrels a day in excess to what we have today. The big question is, will OPEC Plus agree to extend those cuts or carry on with their original plan to go with the 5.7 starting January? And if we look at some of the analysts and what they're saying, I think with COVID resurging in some places around the world, OPEC Plus would not do itself a big favor by flooding the market with more oil. So the projections are likely that they wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I know that is a lot to take stock of and certainly keep track of. But yeah, we'll certainly know that you'll be on the case looking at OPEC Plus as well as the broader market and those movements as we start in many corners of the world, and I would say certainly here, the joy of moving to 2021 and saluting and saying goodbye to 2020. So to your comment, Assaad, I know you talked about production, and certainly that's also in the completions. So it's quite apt that we actually have the Chief Sales Officer for the Completion and Production Solutions segment here at NOV, Ian Ayling, to join us. So want to introduce him. And Ian, thanks for joining us. For those that haven't been able to travel about and always like to know where our guests are hailing from, could you give us a little taste as to where you're joining us from today?
I'm joining you from about 35 miles west of London. So if you're in the middle of London and you head west towards Heathrow and you do the same thing again, that's about where we are.
All right. Well, great. Well, glad you are here with us and certainly appreciate it. Want to jump in with you, Ian, and really talk about something. I also, as much as I love the technology and certainly understanding how markets impact us, I know that, technology and the world economy can't happen and work without people and without really, robust teams. And so I know that you have the opportunity to lead a dynamic team. So I kind of wanted to start out maybe by asking how you sort of view that specifically as someone who's head of a great sales team. How do you really effectively reach your customers now and looking back retrospectively in the last 10 months? How has that impact changed the way that you do business and kind of your day-to-day?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on. Appreciate the opportunity. The last 10 months have just completely turned the sales world upside down. I think just from my own personal experience, I was probably spending 2, maybe more weeks a month traveling, going to meet people, meeting our customers, meeting suppliers, our own employees around the world. And it was just a fundamental part of the job, and it's the part of the job I really like, spending time with people. So all of a sudden that has gone away, and like most people, I've spent my huge amount of my last 10 months stuck on Teams and Zoom and and webinars, and it's been a very dramatic change versus the way life was before. Interestingly, no, we've coped, and if you'd asked me, at the start of the year, would I have ever considered working from home, I would have absolutely said not. And to be honest, I'm at the stage now where I can't wait to just get back to the office and, talk to a real person over a coffee machine and and get on a plane again. It's very, very different from where we were.
Right. Yeah. No, and I know that it's definitely changed the way that we do business. Before I get out of the way for Assaad, I do just kind of want to sort of jump ahead a little bit. I mean, do you, now that you've kind of settled into this routine, I mean, we as humans are somewhat creatures of habit. Do you think that, everyone kind of is going to drop anchor and continue this way, or do you think they'll take the Ian Ayling way and get back into the office and start having those face-to-face conversations?
Well, and that's sad. I'm actually really looking forward to airline food. So no, the world has changed, but I think it's been tough on a lot of people. There's no doubt about it. Certainly there's been a lot of impact on people in our industry, and even those who have jobs. It's been a very different world. So we need to keep that in mind. And I think you're right. We are all people, and we are social animals. The sooner we can get back to some level of normality, the better. And I echo Assaad's thoughts. This vaccine news is great. It's going to take time. You're not going to just vaccinate the world or whatever portion you need to kill the pandemic, but we'll get there.
Well, yeah, and it has to start somewhere. And if it's going to take a year, let it take a year. But show us the way.
Hopefully not that long.
Ian, I want to get maybe a bit more specific on your team and how you've developed tactics within CAPS or completion and production solutions on that. And I think you see it both ways. You mentioned not only customers but also suppliers. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, those personal relationships are now being done more remotely, and it is more difficult. When I look at the sales organization, salespeople by their nature are social. They want to be interacting with people. They want to be doing it face to face. When that sort of major aspect of the job's taken away, we've all kind of had to adapt and adapt pretty quickly. So, it's been amazing to watch. Actually, you've got to be really proud of the effort that everybody's made. We've kind of flipped over and we've looked at what does it take to actually work remotely. So getting connected. Teams has been our tool of choice for the majority of sort of the day-to-day operations. But things like how do you function in a webinar? There's things which are different from maybe what you would do in a meeting setting. So how you keep people engaged. It's in a meeting, a bit of eye contact or asking someone a question directly kind of make sure that you keep them in the conversation. But when you're all of a sudden now looking at a screen, it's a little bit more difficult. So that we've talked a lot about that as a team, and and how we can improve our performance in a remote perspective. Social media has been another area where we can reach into our customers and understand what the market's doing. So it's been really interesting, and I think some of that new technology has actually opened up some different doors for us. When we look at some of the webinars, when we're able to pop up a poll on the screen and ask a question. If you did that in a conference room, you'd maybe get the most vocal guy's voice and maybe one or two others that you could pull in. But in a webinar, you get everybody's input, and so there's a lot of really good data there that we can then use to personalize our response and our further engagement with our customers. So some elements of this have been really positive, and it's while I don't want to stay remote for the rest of my life, I definitely I can see a value in it, and I can see it's going to be part of the mix moving forward.
To building on your point, Ian, I had a pleasant experience with the ability to connect remotely earlier this week. Actually, what would be, like you said in the past, having to jump on a plane to get somewhere across the world to have a meeting, later in the week, and then come back. We planned one of those meetings with our customers, and it was lined up right there and then over a Teams call, which in a different world would have cost a lot of more money, more time, less efficient process. So it's definitely progressing in the right way.
Yeah, I think when we get through all of this, the pandemic, and people start to relax a bit, because it's not going to be okay. Everyone's had a vaccine and we all feel comfortable again. I think it's going to take a bit of time. This has been a bit of a dent on everybody's comfort factors with meetings and how we function. But I think when we go back, we're not going to swing all the way back to in person again. There's going to be some sort of a hybrid, and I think there's an element where the richness of a personal spending time with somebody you don't get that face, through a screen. So, that kicking off a relationship, just having a coffee or going for a beer with somebody, you learn more about them, their family life. It's a more personal connection.
Right.
But you won't need to do that. If I think about like a tender process or working with a customer on a project,
right,
you don't need to make every trip. So maybe every third trip could be in real, FaceTime, and other times could be through the screen. There's lots of ways, and I think that's going to be one of the things that's going to come out of all of this, is that when I look at our industry, we're maybe sometimes a little bit slow to move into new things, but I think when this all started, we were worrying, well, how productive is everyone going to be? How engaged are we going to be able to be with our customers and our suppliers? And actually, we've proved we can do it. Maybe not to the same sort of personal depth of that we maybe would like, but it's possible.
Yeah.
We've got examples. We had one of our teams was concluding contract negotiations in Nigeria through Teams, and it's fantastic.
Wow.
Could you imagine of doing that a year ago? We wouldn't have even contemplated it. So, everyone's adapted, learned some new skills, and just got on with it, which has been really impressive.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, you build the trust aspect between the meetings, and then you get into the meetings to get the stuff done.
Yeah. And I think, and that's, really, I guess one of the things that I've taken away from all of this experience is, we worked a lot on anecdotes and, hey, he said this in a meeting, but when you're not having those, you tend to have to kind of flip back, and it's more about the data now and understanding, looking at the numbers and drilling down into more detail than we maybe would have before. So it's added a different dimension, and and some of the feedback that we've had, and the data we get from the webinars and from working through CRM and things like that.
Yeah,
it's helping us understand the market, even though we're not getting those kind of face-to-face anecdotes that we maybe got before.
Ian, one big thing on, I think, everybody's mind is how has E&P or customer behavior changed in the downturn? And I think when we talk about communication, we talk about building trust, we talk about the production or field development discipline going forward, and the focus on earnings rather than growth. All of that has to, fall down to specific requirements from customers. We see shale struggling to remain competitive because of those very same things. You're at the forefront. You're at the edge there with the customers, listening to their pains, listening to their requirements and needs. What's that looking like, and how's that shifted lately?
Well, I guess the first thing is you got to have some sympathy, because imagine trying to plan your spend with the volatility that we're seeing. We struggle just trying to understand, what the rig count's going to be, and which projects are going to go ahead. When you start to factor in, some of these issues around, how long is this pandemic going to be impacting demand? That level of volatility is just huge. So I think a lot of what we can contribute is how we can help them reduce that risk. Be the sort of safe pair of hands in the industry. So, I think one of the things that NOV brings is that financial stability. Like you mentioned, there's been a lot of companies that have struggled to make it through this. There's one thing, that NOV will be there on the other side. And I think when you look at the vast portfolio that we have, the technical competence that we have. The solutions that we can bring to the market, there's a lot of innovation there, and even in this difficult time, we've still been able to have those conversations with customers and come up with new ideas and ways that, while with the pressure that everyone's under on pricing, there's not really much more discount that can be given, but we can help them save money through technology and the way we apply our technology. And as the equipment designer and manufacturer, there's a lot we can contribute in that respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I know that to Assaad's point, there's a lot of conversation to your point of understanding, what's going on with respect to the challenges or the landscape with respect to to capex and so forth. But I'm just kind of curious, as you've had these conversations again, remote in a new way. What is it that our customers, and I guess specifically as you talk from the completion and production solutions side, what is it that they're really looking for in this really choppy water environment that we're in, and hearing some conversations from some operators. I know that there's one mention that they're foreseeing several, maybe years of uncertainty. What are you seeing, and how are you helping the sales organization adapt?
Well, I think fundamentally it's going to be tight for quite a long time. I think, like Assaad said, the shale plays are going to be tough for a long time. I think where there's going to be, an opening up sooner rather than later will be in the offshore market. So it's been threatening or promising, to come back, in a meaningful way for a while. But when you look at some of the projects that are, being looked at, some of the studies that we're doing, it feels like that's coming. So, so we're focusing where we can, we know we can add value. So when you look at the offshore space, NOV has been focusing a lot on the onshore over the last few years because that's where there was a lot of growth. But we've also got an awful lot that we can offer into the offshore space. So when I look at our subsea portfolio with flexibles and some of the subsea equipment, the topside processing, mooring and offloading solutions, even things like composites and to save in weight and maintenance requirements. There's a lot of things that we do that can save costs for our customers, but also as we move forward, they're going to have to try and reduce their OPEX as well. So people are looking at remote operations, digitization, unmanned. So there's a lot of the things that we provide that can help enable those. So I think that's an area where we're going to go forward. It's going to be a tough market, and we've got to work with our customers. Things like how we can help them reduce their carbon footprint is going to become a bigger and bigger part of the mix as well. And we've got technology that can really help with that as well. You look at things like our e-frac fleet. It's a substantial impact on the carbon footprint of a frac operation. I think I've read it was something like 42% less road traffic. The emissions that we reduce, the complexity on site. So, there's an automatic benefit there for safety. And then you go offshore and you look at, things like subsea storage that we're working on. There's a huge saving in terms of, carbon emissions with having that versus a floating solution. So, all of these things moving forward, I think there's going to be a bigger and bigger pressure on our customers, and we need to be ready to help them and support them with that.
That's a great segue into my next one, Ian, and that's precisely about energy transition. Completion and production is not limited to completion and production. We know you guys do a bit more than that. First, with the whole ESG being top of the list when it comes to any E&P or oil and gas company conversation, how do you see that impacting our industry going forward, and what specifically does CAPS have to offer?
First, I'm an optimist. I think it's going to be a great. You look at oil and gas and the competency that we have, and in particular within NOV, the ability to manage big projects, to deliver equipment, big infrastructure things. We have skill sets which are absolutely transferable into that renewable space, and actually, when directly equipment that can fit. So we look at floating offshore wind. I mentioned our mooring systems with APL. Fits great. We can apply fiberglass handrails, grids, and whatever to lighten the topside structure that the wind turbine will sit on. So then you reduce maintenance requirements, things like that. And then the other areas as well. So we're looking. There's geothermal, biogas is another natural fit. We have an industrials group within the CAPS part of NOV already who are in this space. But then you combine that with some of the tanks fiberglass tanks that we can provide. handling materials that you need for feedstocks into biogas. There's an awful lot. And then, I mentioned those subsea tanks that we're developing. Well, depending on how it moves in the future, people are talking about hydrogen or ammonia as the fuel of the future.
Yeah.
One potential application of these tanks is to actually store ammonia subsea.
Right.
Because one of the challenges with renewables is the intermittency. You don't guarantee wind is going to blow all the time or the sun is always going to shine. So storing that energy is going to be the absolute critical element to this whole energy transition. So it's actually really exciting. And all of the guys on the team that are contributing to where we're looking at this, whether it's the wind or the storage or the hydrogen, CCUS, or everybody, you can just see this is a little bit different. It's a new market to learn, some new skills but finding that our existing competence and technology can, it's very adjacent to it and can be plugged in and work with actually relatively little modification. I can see it. I think oil and gas is going to be around for a very, very long time. We're not just going to replace what we can deliver with oil and gas over, certainly in my lifetime, and I'm sure if my children wanted to join this industry, they'd be quite safe. But the mix is going to change, and it's great to be part of it, and seeing what we can contribute as NOV.
And great point there. I think I can echo what you said on. We're already in that space. It's the fact that it's a different source of energy doesn't make it very different to building meg regeneration facilities or gas sweetening or subsea storage for gas. It's same skill sets. We're dealing with different environments and different materials that we're also familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's part of the benefit of having the kind of portfolio that we do within NOV and the competencies that we do have. We can take people who have maybe only ever dealt with TEG and drying gas for LNG applications or whatever, and they could be very competent in a hydrogen or a CCUS type of application. So it's fascinating. I think as we move forward, we need to develop that and understand it better and how we put all the pieces together. Very much like the challenge that we have in NOV in general, where we're such a diverse company with so many different pieces, it can be a little bit confusing, I think, looking in from the outside. So
yeah,
I think that's kind of where I see my role is, as much as possible, trying to kind of put the pieces together into bite-sized chunks that make sense. So things like offshore, here's the pieces that we can do for that, or a tieback, or a topside process system. There's lots of elements that we can help simplify the company for our customers.
Yeah.
Well, we know that there is no shortage of to-dos on your plate, Ian. So want to respect your time. See if you don't mind, if we can squeeze in one question real quick. We always have more than what we can get in on the show. So we'll bring Shelby in, see if we can give you one. I'm sure it'll be an easy one for someone of your stature.
I paid her enough for the easy one.
Well, I sure hope it's easy. I'll try. I hope it comes off that way. So we get a lot of comments. I'm sure if you look through any of our lives, people looking for work. And I think right now with everything we've talked about this last year, that's quite a hot topic. So I'm curious what your advice would be for someone either coming back to the industry, maybe people graduating, just starting in the industry. What would your advice be to somebody in that position?
Do you know what? Go for it. I mean, right now it's tough, and and oil and gas is a cyclical business. So we've been through a lot of downturns and upturns. So it can be tough. But what I would say is it's been a fantastic experience for me. I've got to live on 5 continents. I've got to meet so many different people. So many amazing experiences. There's not too many of my peers who graduated from my class who I think could say the same that I can. So from that perspective, it's amazing. I think for anybody in the industry or thinking of joining it, I think we're going through a period of of change, and I think that's probably only going to accelerate. So I think we all need to be ready to, continually be learning and improving and, and adapting. I use the experience, social media. Believe it or not, I'm a little bit older than I look. So, trying to understand that, and I think when we look at our customers, the millennials now are, I think the oldest millennial is nearly 40. They're running departments, they're making decisions, they're decision makers in the industry, but they're the most connected, generation yet in the workforce, and they are using social media. They don't see like I do. They're probably less worried about seeing people through a screen instead of face to face. So I think we all need to just keep learning, and so that's kind of one on my list of my personal goals, is trying to understand that whole sort of social media, and how we can use it to our benefit, how we can portray the company in a positive light, and engage through that way rather than just some of the more traditional routes.
Well, you set the bar high as always, Ian. I wish people could see your meeting notes and how you're able to draw them out. I try, and my stick figures fall flat every time. But your colorful renditions of your meetings make me want to invite you to all of them. So no, but I appreciate your perspective. It's really creative, refreshing, and really insightful. So appreciate you taking the time. I know you have to skedaddle, so we appreciate you sticking around and joining us on the Ask Assaad show today.
Not at all. Really appreciate it. Enjoyed it, and thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.
Oh, and by the way, if anybody out there wants to get in touch, I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free, and I don't know if they're going to share my email address, but it's just ian.ayling@nov.com. So get in touch. Happy to, if anyone's got any questions, we can follow up afterwards.
Sure. Yeah, we'll be sure to put that in the comments section as well. All right. Well, Ian Ayling, Chief Sales Officer for the Completion and Production Solutions segment here at NOV. Appreciate you joining us.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ian.
All right, Assaad. Well, yeah, quite a great conversation today. Certainly a lot that has happened in the last couple weeks, and more still to come. I know as folks round out the year and as we start looking towards 2021 and the things yet to be. Of course, the crystal ball is always opaque, but the
opaque
and glimmer of hope that lies therein, I'm always hopeful for.
I'm optimistic, honestly. I mean, there's energy. There's a vibe of positivity, I think, for next year. We haven't seen it materialize yet, but I'm pretty hopeful that things will start turning for us not too far in the future here.
Great. Well, I'll hold you to that. I'll hold you to it in no uncertain terms. Well, great. Well, appreciate it, Assaad. Good to see you. And of course, as always, appreciate our viewers joining us as well. So if you have any questions, again, we'll put Ian Ayling's email in the comments section. If you have a question for Assaad on markets or perspective or anything that we've talked on the show, he's an open book. So feel free to send an email, and that's simply askassad@nov.com. And your friendly neighborhood Assaad Mohanna stands ready to answer your questions.
Anytime.
So we'll appreciate it, Assaad, and as always, appreciate our viewers. So on behalf of all of us here at NOV, thanks for watching and for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.